Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast.
Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion shares the lessons learned from our experience of love, devotion, and desire inside of our 24/7 Dom Sub marriage.
We found that dominance and submission is more than just a kink. For us, it's been a path to deep intimacy and desire that lasts over the long term. We share our experience through this podcast to be the example that we didn't have when we started down this path, and to help you find your way to a dynamic that works in your real life.
You can learn more about us and our courses and offerings in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Dom Sub Devotion. My name is Andrew, and on Dom Sub Devotion, I talk about what it takes to live dominant-submissive dynamics inside of loving, healthy relationships. And there's something that's inherently true about power exchange and dominant-submissive dynamics in general, and that is that these relationships are highly polarized relationships, meaning that the difference between the two partners is exaggerated or maximized. And that's what allows for the intensity and the passion that these dynamics create. And a lot of people want to have these kinds of relationship dynamics because of that passion, because they want to feel that intensity. They may want to reestablish that intensity in a relationship that has lost it, or they may want to be able to maintain that in a future relationship. But the reason that we want these relationships in general, that we want something more than just the standard kind of vanilla relationship, is that we're looking for something better, something different. And people say that they want these relationship dynamics. People say that they want power exchange. They say that they want to live in dominant-submissive dynamics. They say that they want things like masculine-feminine polarity. They say that they want things like divine union, divine masculine, divine feminine. But what most people actually want is all of that intensity without being threatened or having to change anything about themselves. Today's episode is going to talk about the uncomfortable truth about polarity. The things about a relationship that's based on polarity, like a dominant-submissive dynamic, that are going to make you come undone. It reminds me of a quote from Anthony de Mello, who was a Jesuit monk, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But in his book, Awareness, he says, "You don't want this." He's speaking about consciousness, about real deep awareness. He says, you don't want this. And what he's getting at is the version of you that you are right now is going to fight against consciousness, awareness, truth with everything that it has. The version of you that you are right now does not want what it's going to take for you to have what it is that you claim that you want. So, what I'm going to do today is talk about some of those things that you might not realize that you're going to have to face, the uncomfortable truths of polarity. Because you don't get to have power without surrender. You don't get to have leadership without responsibility. You don't get to have devotion without being exposed. So if you really want this kind of relationship, if you want the kind of relationship that Dawn and I live in, or what we teach people to live, you have to understand that these kind of relationship dynamics are not built for your comfort. They are not built so that you can get your partner to be what you want them to be, because then you think that you will just be okay. Polarity doesn't let you off the hook or give you the means to change someone else. Dominant-submissive dynamics, when they're taken deep, like any relationship that is a highly polarized relationship dynamic, is built for your transformation. Your transformation. You don't get to use this to transform your partner into what you think that they need to be. And you don't even get to use it to transform yourself into what you think you're supposed to be. Transformation in the way that these relationship dynamics will make happen is the kind of transformation that means dying to every version of yourself that you thought that you were and seeing what's left when you're done. Because when the feminine side, the submissive side of these relationship dynamics really starts to open up, when she really starts to become uncontained, when women talk about wanting to embody the divine feminine, she's not going to be sweet and predictable. She's going to be wild. She's going to be chaotic. She's going to be emotional. She is going to be absolutely untamable. And that energy is going to terrify both of you. It's going to challenge and terrify the part of her that's been trained to stay small and to be a good girl and to be obedient. And it'll challenge the part of him that wants to manage and control her and use her to get his needs met instead of leading her where she's at. And on the other side of this, when the masculine comes fully online, when he is fully living in his consciousness, he's going to be grounded and clear. He's going to be immovable in what he believes to be true. And that's going to terrify both of you too. Because he's going to stop caring about your stories and see right through to the core of you. He's going to stop protecting your comfort. And he's going to cut through everything that's not real. And that's confronting as hell, both to her and to him. And here's the big headline of this whole episode, is that to the ego, to the version of you that you are right now, a highly polarized relationship is going to feel like a toxic relationship. A woman might think she's being gaslit when her man speaks truths that she doesn't want to hear. A man might think his woman is being manipulative or deceptive when she changes her mind every 3 minutes. But those are just the ego interpreting something far deeper. Life itself is moving through two people who are willing to stop pretending. So polarity, dominance and submission, masculine, feminine dynamics, these things aren't cute. They are not tidy. They are not calm. They are not pretty. It is raw, it's messy, and it's absolutely alive. And that energy, that aliveness, that will burn away your performance and everything that you do to try to stay in control and keep everything inside of your comfort zone. But if you can learn to stay open through that, if you can keep loving each other, if you can keep leading and following through the fear, it will also become the most transformative, the most erotic, the most intense, the most passionate, and the most spiritual connection of your entire life. So if that's the reality, if polarity isn't calm and it isn't comfortable, what actually happens when two people start living this way? Because everybody loves the idea of masculine and feminine energy. It sounds like a great way to fix yourself and fix your partner and make everything perfect. Everyone wants the chemistry, everyone wants the passion and the depth, but very few people are ready for what that depth actually exposes about yourself. The truth is, when you really open the current between masculine and feminine, and when you do this inside of a polarized relationship dynamic like dominance and submission, everything gets amplified. So yes, the attraction, the passion, the intensity, the sexuality, all of that gets amplified. But also the wounds, the fears, the control patterns, the ways that you deceive yourself and try to get away with things. Everything gets amplified when that energy really starts moving through the relationship dynamic. Every part of you that's still pretending or trying to just get away with things or get by with things are going to break. Every part of you that thinks that you need to be comfortable more than you want the truth is going to want to run away. And that's the point. is that these relationships dynamics do not let you hide. They won't let you hide from anything. It will bring you out of your shadows. It will bring you out of your projections. It will bring you out of your deepest unmet needs and show you where you collapse, where you try to manipulate, where you withhold, where you are needy, where you are afraid. And if you stay with it, if you keep choosing truth over comfort, then real love, real polarity, real dominant-submissive dynamics start to grow and come alive. So let's talk about what this actually looks like. Let's talk about the uncomfortable truths, the parts that nobody warns you about when you come across this idea of polarity, the things that don't fit into the pretty little Instagram version of polarity, but the things that you have to understand if you want to live this in a real way. And so let's start with number one. A polarized relationship will not be comfortable. This is not the kind of relationship that's meant to feel calm, and it's not the kind of relationship that is going to feel easy. Not in the way that you probably think of the word easy. The whole point of polarity is that energy is moving. It's going to be alive. When polarity is real, that energy sometimes moves intensely. It moves violently. And it is unpredictable and it's chaotic. Again, the feminine becomes uncontained and the masculine becomes uncompromising. Both people are going to have to evolve to hold that kind of intensity and that kind of separateness inside of a devoted connection. So polarity and a relationship where you start to intentionally create this space between masculine and feminine, between man and woman, between dominant and submissive. It's going to expose where both people are still relying on control, on trying to control each other and trying to control yourselves, suppressing things. As the feminine comes alive, as she becomes uncontained and out of control, her unfiltered expression, when she's really reflecting the truth of what she's feeling on a moment-to-moment basis, it's going to feel chaotic. It does feel chaotic. But that chaos it's a connection to something deeper. It is a connection to the energy that can move through her. And the same thing that causes it to feel emotionally chaotic at times is what powers the sexual intensity. And so when we seek sexual intensity, but then we try to limit emotional intensity, we are working against ourselves. We're talking out of two sides of our mouth, or we are trying to put water in both ends of a garden hose. So that chaos, that's truth trying to move, and that's energy trying to move, and it's going to have to be dealt with. And the masculine clarity and power dominance can feel very dangerous to a woman who has had unhealthy relationships with masculine power in the past. And it feels unhealthy and sometimes downright toxic to the man who is embodying that masculine energy. If his relationship to masculine power has been one that has hurt him in the past, it's going to be threatening to parts of you, even though it's true, and because it's true. Because deep down, our nervous systems want stability. We want comfort. We want safety. But growth and expansion and any sort of an intense relationship dynamic is going to require something that feels uncomfortable. The feminine isn't supposed to stay inside of a neat little emotional box. This is straight out of conversations that Dawn and I have about how I ask her not to box up her emotions in a pretty little box, to let them pour out however she feels them. It's supposed to move like weather. It's supposed to come and go. It's supposed to be unpredictable because that's what emotions are. And she is an emotionally expressive being. That's how she works. So bringing the full spectrum of her emotional expression online is part and parcel with creating a polarized relationship dynamic. If she's not expressing her emotion, she's suppressing her emotion. And anyone who's ever suppressed their own authentic feelings knows what that turns into. It turns into bitterness, resentment, shutdown, apathy. No one is healthy. Depression, there's another one. No one is healthy when they have to take an authentic feeling and stuff it down. So the masculine job, the dominant job, is not to calm her down. And I know I did an episode a few weeks back here about how I helped keep Dawn calm, which is really more about how I help her regulate her state because of all of the emotional energy that moves through her. The whole point for me is to stay calm in that storm so that I can, A, teach her body that it's safe to express whatever it is that she feels, and B, so that I can see the truth in what's going on there. You might have heard me say this before, that every emotional reaction that a woman is having is 100% accurate to something. Sometimes it is accurate to an accurate response to what's going on around her and what she's feeling. Sometimes it's a response that's 100% accurate to some pain or wounding or fear that she has inside of herself. It's our job, it's my job as the dominant, as the masculine, to see the difference in that. And then not fix her, but do something to help her evolve through that when I can. So if both of you in this kind of a relationship dynamic are not occasionally terrified, you're probably still playing on the surface. The second reason that polarity is uncomfortable is because it amplifies everything. Polarity amplifies the light and it amplifies the dark. It amplifies the good and the bad. And when these energies between a dominant and submissive collide, they magnify attraction and love. They magnify your insecurity, your neediness, your shame, your fear, your ego. Everything comes to the surface because the entire point of a polarized relationship is to live in truth. And when you start looking at the truth is going to come to the surface. It will not be hidden. You can't look at certain parts and not see others. So you're going to have things that are going to come up and come to the surface. It's the same current that creates that erotic intensity that everybody wants out of these dynamics, that also surfaces all of these old wounds. It surfaces all of this insecurity, all of the self-doubt, the things that come along with the erotic intensity. When you start seeing and feeling uncomfortable things, you know that you're getting into the deep end. And the work, really, and this is why we talk about devotion, the work is learning to stay together while these things burn off, instead of looking at it as evidence that you need to run away. It's where most couples quit. They think the intensity means something's wrong, instead of realizing that it is revealing what's real. So when you open up the channel of this energy between masculine and feminine, you aren't just inviting the emotions that you want. You're inviting the emotions that are there. And all of those old suppressed emotions and the things that both of you have stuffed down are going to come to the surface. The intensity doesn't mean you're broken. It does mean that something's moving. And if you can stay with it, these things will move through. But it's almost like voltage. The more energy that has been stuffed, the more things that have been suppressed, the more egoic patterns that you've been using to try to survive or just get by, It's like that charge has been charging up a battery inside of you, and that battery can hold a lot of voltage. And when that energy starts to move, there's a high charge to it. It's going to be a bright light. There's a lot of electricity to these kinds of relationship dynamics. It's why we want them. So we have to recognize that the energy, the intensity, the passion, sometimes, again, what might even feel toxic to a certain level, to the part of us that's afraid of that intensity, might actually not be anything other than the very thing that you were looking for. If you want the electricity of attraction and desire, you have to be willing to become a conduit for it. You have to let yourself be the wire, which means you're going to have to feel. And for the men on the side of this, you're going to have to learn how to feel. You're going to have to let yourself feel. The next uncomfortable truth about polarity is that the more she surrenders, the more he is going to need to be trustworthy. And very few men are ready for that level of integrity, that intensity of trustworthiness. Her surrender, her submission is sacred. It is not a weakness. It's a full body devotion, and it's going to require that she feels safe. But most men want her surrender without having to step forward to the level of integrity and trustworthiness that it's going to require. Most women long to surrender, but most men don't realize what it demands of you. She will only ever surrender to the depth of your integrity. And it is your presence, not your control, that creates real safety. And that is the difference between dominance and submission in the way that we speak about it, and dominance and submission as a kink scene. You can play with control, but that will never create a deep feeling of safety in a submissive woman's body. She will never actually deeply let go of control, deeply submit to a man who's trying to take something from her or get something from her, rather than a man who is trying to serve her and lead her. And what I see, and I've seen this in myself as much as I've seen it in men that I've worked with, most men will collapse when they're faced with the true intensity of a feminine, the true intensity of a submissive woman, because they haven't developed the capacity to hold it. And so what I've had to do for myself is continually develop more and more capacity. Dawn lets go more. I'm going to need to grow more. I grow more, and then she's able to let go more. It's not all at once. It takes time, because it takes the felt sense of being safe enough to let go. She doesn't hold on to control because she wants to. She holds on to control because she thinks she has to in order to survive. So you can't demand surrender. You can't just tell her to submit. You, as the man, have to become safe. And that starts with feeling safe in yourself, in your own body, with your own internal experience. Her body won't open to words. Her body won't open to promises. And it certainly won't open because you negotiated an agreement of a contract with her. She will open when she feels you consistently safe. And that's why you have to do your own internal work. And when she's raging, when she's crying, when she's messy, that is the moment that she is looking for your stability. That is the moment when you need to show up, when you need to stand tall. Leadership in a polarity-based relationship, in a dominant-submissive dynamic, in the way that I teach about them here. Leadership isn't about getting her to obey. It's about being trustworthy enough that you can hold the deepest parts of another human being. Think about that. Trust isn't built in those easy moments. It's built when she's spiraling and you stay grounded instead of making it about yourself or defending yourself or trying to fix her. The next uncomfortable truth about polarity is that the feminine is going to test. She is always going to continue to test her partner. The submissive is always going to test her dominant. The feminine partner is always going to test her masculine partner. And this isn't to punish or to try to hurt him or to point out where he's bad or wrong. She's always trying to feel the truth. And in general, the reason that her tests hurt, that they feel like they get somewhere, is because she's pretty good at feeling where you are out of alignment, where you are out of integrity. Her tests aren't games to be played. And this is my big gripe with people who bring the language from like pickup artistry over into this kind of relationship dynamic and call these things shit tests. Her tests aren't games. This is a very deep instinct of searching for safety. She's trying to verify whether or not it's safe enough for her to let go of control. So when the dominant is pretending or performing or out of alignment, out of integrity, she already feels it. And she's going to unconsciously press against it to see if it falls over. And this isn't like a conscious manipulation that she does. It's more like an automatic calibration. It's like a scale. When she feels the weight going one direction on a scale, and she's going to notice herself move, like she'll notice something in herself moving, and then she will lean back into it to try to calibrate, to balance out, to figure out what's going on here. So when she pokes, or it feels like she's criticizing or questioning, or she's shutting down, what she's really doing is feeling that there's something that she doesn't trust here. And then if you collapse as the masculine partner, as the dominant partner, if you fall apart or if you try to force, you just verified that she was right. You've just shown her that she picked up on something and she was accurate. The only right answer, the only way to handle her tests is to be solid enough that they don't sway you. And that is, again, why this requires internal work on the part of the dominant masculine partner first. And there's a lot of pressure that men put on themselves in these situations because it will feel like she's looking like you have to be perfect. You just need to be willing to be seen where you are not in the truth, where you are not in the right. Every single test is a doorway. She's giving you an opportunity to show her that you are solid. And if you can't show her that you're solid, you're showing her that she needs to control herself and protect herself and that she can't let go yet. The best way to pass her tests is to not make it about you, to listen to her. The next uncomfortable truth about polarity is that real, honest leadership is going to break your ego. To lead in a dominant-submissive dynamic means being willing to be misunderstood. It means being willing to be accused and rejected. It means being sometimes called controlling or selfish, domineering, especially by the parts of her and yourself that are afraid of your power. You cannot lead while you are trying to seek validation. And you have to understand that because of the inherent nature of what this requires, the masculine partner, the dominant, has to go first. And that means you are going to be in a lonely position for a while. You're going to need to be able to meet yourself, not look for her approval. And leading a woman into her depth, into her feminine integrity, will sometimes mean holding her anger and her projection and her ego and her chaos and her patterns without collapsing or retaliating or even trying to do anything about them. Sometimes you are going to see all the way to the core of her and not be able to do a damn thing about it. And that will break you. So if you need her approval or her permission to feel powerful and dominant, you're still putting her in charge. You're still looking at her in a way almost as the mommy. Sometimes love looks like being willing to be the villain in her story for a little while she comes around to seeing the truth of what it is that you see. You have to be able to remain still under fire, and you're going to collapse, you're going to fail, you're going to fall apart, and you're going to need to stand back up. But it is the ego that wants you to put things in the comfort zone. Your soul wants to live in truth, and so does hers. But she can't go there until you're already there, so you can invite her in. Sometimes you're going to have to hold a boundary or set a rule or create a structure that's going to upset her, knowing that she will ultimately understand. And on the other side, for the feminine, real surrender is going to break your ego too. Surrender and submission sounds romantic and sexy and fun until it starts dismantling everything that you thought that you were, everything you built to keep yourself safe. Being in submission, living in a state of surrender is the end of being in control. And when you are out of control, it's going to be uncomfortable. This is making a choice, not to give up, but to give in, or to give over yourself to the truth, to what's real, to what's alive. And the identity structures that you have built to keep yourself safe, to survive, to be good, to be competent, to be able to take care of yourself, whatever it is, all of these identity structures are going to have to fall apart. Surrender, submission, feels like death to the ego because in a way it is a death. It's a death of who you had to be up until the point where now you are looking to make a choice, to surrender, to give yourself over to a partner. The deeper that you surrender, the more grief that you will feel, because all of those old versions of you are going to die, and it's going to feel like, I can't tell you how many times Dawn has said it's felt like she's at her funeral. These old versions of yourself are going to die. But there's at least a certain subset of people that follow us who think that this is all just very poetic, that this is all very cute. But think about it for a second. Submission, surrender, means losing control over how you're seen, how you are loved, how you are understood, over what makes you good and lovable and acceptable. You're not just surrendering to your dominant as a person. You're surrendering to him as life itself. You're surrendering through him. And every time you let go of control, another mask falls away because it doesn't have space there. And you're going to have to continue to choose whether or not you're going to step into control or you're going to step back. And that isn't going to feel safe. Not at first, not for a while. So this idea of submission being this super easy, light, flowy, feminine state, like you'll see some people talk about, eventually it gets to be. But not until you go through a very intense period of a lot of death, a lot of ego death. Another uncomfortable truth about polarity is that comfort in and of itself goes away. Most vanilla relationships where polarity is not a priority, evolve into some version of a relationship that seeks comfort, that seeks to feel almost soothing and gentle. A deeply polarized relationship is not going to soothe you, and it's not always going or often going to feel gentle. It's going to feel energetic, to say the least. And it is meant to transform and evolve you. The attraction between You and your partner is the force that burns away whatever is not true. So the goal or the objective or the long-term reality of a relationship that's based in polarity, again, like a power exchange dynamic, these are very polarized relationships. The direction that you're heading is not towards a more peaceful relationship dynamic. A relationship that's based in comfort will often end in stagnation. Again, like I said at the beginning of this episode, a comfortable relationship is not a polarized relationship. So in a dominant-submissive dynamic or any relationship where you are pursuing masculine-feminine polarity, the relationship becomes its own spiritual practice in a way. It's a place where your edges are revealed. It's where you are refined. And there's going to be immense discomfort in a relationship like this. If you're always comfortable, you're probably not growing, and you're certainly probably not having the great sex that you want to have and experiencing the passionate intensity that you want to experience. So you have to almost be willing to stop trying to protect the relationship. And there are parts of letting go of comfort that are going to be really, really challenging. Dawn and I had 10 years as a couple before we even started down the road of dominance and submission. And then as we've gone into this now over the last almost 7 years, what we have continued to experience is that the patterns that we built around comfort continue to no longer have a place, at least not the same place. So you start using the relationship as a mirror for truth rather than as a place to seek comfort. The whole purpose of these dynamics isn't happiness. Sorry to say. It's wholeness. It's completeness. It's intensity. It is truth, but it is not just feeling happy. It's your ego that wants to just feel happy all the time. So what I'd like you to consider on this particular point is, what if the friction in your relationship, the things that you fight over, the places that you disagree with each other, what if that isn't a problem at all? What if that's the material that's designed to show you where you could be better? What if you stop trying to fix the problems and let them show you where you could grow and evolve? Another uncomfortable truth about polarity-based relationships is that you're going to take turns. You aren't always going to be on the same page. Dawn and I have used the language that it's like I go and then she goes and then I go and then she goes, because I will grow to a certain point and then she will need to come along with me. And then a lot of times she will slingshot past me. And then I'm needing to, like, she's needing something more from me. So resistance doesn't disappear. It's more like sometimes I'm going to be calling her forward along with me. And sometimes she's going to be standing out there ahead of me saying, I need more from you. And when you see these places, when you are feeling that you need more from your partner, rather than looking at them as not caring or not wanting it or not being good enough for you, recognize that this is a part of the dance. And dropping the resistance to growing, so that when your partner is asking for more from you, you can look at it and say, what exactly is it? Where can I be better here? Not looking at it as a threat when someone is asking for more from you, but looking at it as an opportunity to grow. So when you feel resistance to that growth, and both of you in this kind of a relationship dynamic are going to be called forward and feel some sort of resistance to it. And that resistance, that is your ego trying to stay intact, trying to hold on to its stories. But the mature response, the response inside of a relationship dynamic that is going to grow in consciousness and awareness and depth, is curiosity when you meet that resistance. What is it that I'm protecting about myself? Why am I afraid to be called forward here? Rather than pointing fingers at your partner, saying that you want too much, or beating yourself up. And when one person is going through that period of resistance, the other person's job is going to be patient. And that's really hard because it feels like they're not coming with you. And Dawn and I have both been here. It can feel like you're out on your own. So having the patience and some compassion for that person and what they're going through, which you will grow in these as you go through these different stages of evolution and resistance. And you'll start to understand how internally, personally challenging it is to grow in these ways. And then when you see your partner in a period of growth where they are needing to go through something for themselves, you'll have a lot more compassion for them. You'll have more patience because you'll remember probably very recently a time that you went through this for yourself. But sometimes the most loving thing that you can do is to let your partner resist. If she shuts down, if he pulls away, don't chase, don't punish. Just recognize that that person is scared right now. And you don't overcome fear by badgering or by chasing or by getting upset. You overcome fear with compassion. And one of the things you will have to get good at is learning how to spot when you are in resistance to your own growth. You'll come to a point when you'll be able to see what you're doing. You might not be able to stop yourself from doing it, but you'll at least be able to see that you're resisting your own growth. And that is half the battle right there. Another uncomfortable truth about polarity relationships: the deeper that you go, the sharper the mirror gets. A lot of times, we like to think that the farther that we go, the easier it's going to get. Right? Like, okay, well, why are we doing this? We're doing this because it's supposed to make something better. But better doesn't necessarily mean smoother, easier, and comfortable. If you're trying to get to comfort, you're still playing the wrong game. You're trying to get to truth. The deeper that you go, the more crisp and clear the dominant masculine partner's consciousness is going to be and become. He's going to see things even more clearly. He's going to be even more cutting with the truth. And she is going to feel bigger. There's going to be more of that emotional energy moving. So this mirror gets sharper and you won't be able to hide from yourself with your partner anymore. Every little shadow and insecurity and unhealed wound is going to show up. And so the deeper that you go, the sharper this gets. You are going to magnify your awareness. The deeper that you go, there's going to be less room for self-deception. You will both realize that any little place that you're holding on to your ego is showing up in your partner, and you will see it. You will see your partner not thriving or leading or following in the way that you know that they're capable of, and you will look at yourself and realize that there is some part of me that is contributing to that. You won't be able to blame them anymore. The reality is most fights, most of the things where you blame or point fingers at each other, it has nothing to do with your partner. The thing that you're upset about over there is showing you something about yourself, something you don't want to see, and something that's uncomfortable about you. And in order to have these kind of relationship dynamics, you are going to have to be willing to see all of yourself. and their eyes are going to help you see you. We cannot see our own unconscious patterns in any way, shape, or form clearly without a reflection. They are unconscious. We are not aware of these patterns. We can only really see them when someone else mirrors them to us, quite often. And so when you think that you're right, when you think that your partner is wrong, when you're blaming them, when you're upset with them, it's probably trying to show you something really deeply uncomfortable about yourself. And that only gets sharper and sharper and sharper the deeper that you go. Because the more you love someone, the deeper that this polarity goes, the more that that person is going to expose your bullshit. If you want to pursue a dominant-submissive dynamic inside of a loving relationship, you're going to have to fall in love with feedback. You are really going to have to learn to love getting feedback. Because every single moment that you feel irritated or that you feel like your partner isn't doing something right, it is an invitation to you to look inward at yourself. And these kind of relationships are not going to protect your ego. They're not going to protect you in a way that lets you be right all the time. It's going to purify you. There is a big difference between being right and being free. And we have to be willing to be wrong, or really to let go of the whole entire concept of I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong, and really pursue what's true and real and not care about who's right. I have two more of these uncomfortable truths about polarity-based relationships and dominant-submissive dynamics. First, the erotic charge that you seek, the intensity of dominance and submission, of kink, cannot coexist with comfort and sameness. Polarity thrives on difference, and this is why when the dominant takes on the leadership role, the submissive takes on the followership role, we have created difference. And now there's a dance between these two. There's a dance between direction and surrender, between leader and follower, between structure and flow. So when you are trying to make everything equal or comfortable, you're killing that sexual current. And a lot of people who start down the path of these polarity-based relationships will start to experience some of the passion and the intensity, and then they will come back to some of the patterns of comfort. And they will continue to wonder why they can't hold more of this intensity. But then they're going back to the comfort patterns again. Like I said earlier, a lot of those comfortable things in our relationship have gone away. And that's its own grieving in a certain way, because that was what our relationship, for Dawn and I, was based on for a long time. It was a very comfortable relationship. It was a very friendly relationship. It was a very loving relationship. And those patterns don't work anymore. And so this isn't about being unequal, because we are both equally worthy. In a dominant-submissive dynamic, the dominant is not more valuable than the submissive. So what we're talking about here is sameness in energy is where passion goes to die. Fairness, equality, flattens polarity. Desire needs friction. It needs contrast. It needs tension. It needs space. Trying to make everything fair or even usually just comes from fear or trying to control something, trying to get yourself to a point where you feel okay. But you can be equals in value and unequal in role. or what I like to say is functionally opposite. When two things are opposite, it doesn't mean that one's good and one's bad. It just means that they are entirely different. And that is the type of difference we're talking about when it comes to a relationship based in polarity. Sameness feels safe, but safety without some kind of danger, without some kind of energy, without some kind of movement or direction, isn't going to feel alive. It's just going to feel flat. If you want passion, you have to allow difference. Masculine energy, dominance, leads by clarity. Feminine energy gives by feeling. If you're trying to play both, or if you're trying to do each other's side of this polarity equation, desire is going to die. It has to. You can't negotiate eroticism. The erotic is a natural reaction to polarity that is embodied in the two people that are in relationship, period. And that leads me to my last one of these, which is that the love that polarity creates is real. And most of us don't know what real love actually is. Real love doesn't promise protection from pain. It promises a connection to what's true. And that will always cost you something, because what's false, what's not true, cannot exist in the presence of truth. So this kind of a relationship dynamic is going to give you something more valuable in return, but it is going to take away your comfort. The ego wants comfortable, safe love. The soul wants real love. And real love is sometimes going to feel unsafe because it threatens your illusions. To be loved fully means being seen completely, and the only way to experience that is to stop hiding. So if it doesn't risk anything, it's not going anywhere. And it can be very comfortable. And that may be what you decide that you want. But if you want something that's more passionate, that's more intense, you have to start making it mean something. And again, this is about learning to be present. You're not always going to feel good in it, but can you still be there? Can you be there and let the uncertainty, the lack of control, be a part of what feeds you feeling alive? So let's loop this all the way back to the start. That's what people don't tell you when they say that they want polarity. It's what most people don't understand about themselves when they think that they want to get into a dominant-submissive dynamic. They think they're going to get everything they want. And they most often don't realize how much they are going to have to see about themselves. These kinds of relationships are not cute, they're not calm, but they are definitely real. And the truth is, polarity isn't supposed to feel comfortable. It's supposed to wake you up. It is supposed to undo you. It is supposed to tear through everything false and leave you standing there, naked, honest, and fully alive. And you don't get to have this kind of love and keep your ego intact. You don't get to be right and be free. And you don't get to protect yourself and keep yourself hidden and also be fully seen. That's the cost. That's the deal that you're making in these kinds of dominant-submissive dynamics. A polarized relationship will ruin you beautifully. It will take every strategy that you've ever used to try to make things how you want them to be and make it all useless. It'll burn it all to the ground. It'll take every spiritual bypass, every facade and persona and identity that you've created, that you use to try to present a version of yourself to the world that you think will get you liked, and it'll burn them down until there's nothing left but whatever is real. And that's the point. So if you want to be seen, let someone see all of it. You want to be taken, you want to be ravished, then stop resisting being taken. You say you want depth, then stop running away every time that it stops feeling good. Polarity isn't a love story. Not in the way that you think it's going to be. But if you stay with it, if you don't run from the fire, it will break you open in ways that no amount of therapy or journaling or meditation ever could. Because at the end of it all, the chaos and the beauty and the fear, as you move through that, there's just truth. And once you taste that, the ecstasy of living in what's real, you will never settle for comfort again.